Chapter 29. Gu Mingming was dumbfounded. Eat. Eat it raw. Not to mention eating, Gu Mingming felt nauseous just by looking at the bloody scene. She retched a few times and almost vomited. Leader, lend me a fire. Gu Mingming looked at Elvis pitifully. Fire? Elvis frowned, clearly not understanding what Gu Mingming meant. As long as he had it, he could give it all to her, let alone lend it to her? Even if he did not have it, as long as he knew what it was, he would fight for it with his life, and not let her be unable to get it. But fire? What was that? Gu Mingming looked at Elvis, feeling extremely unbalanced. She was totally dumbfounded. Why did he look so much more pretentious than her? He was clearly an idiot, who did not even know what fire was. Gu Mingming sighed heavily, thinking to herself, this society that only cares about looks. Leader, can you find 2 dry branches for me? One is thicker, yeah, as thick as your arm. The other is thinner, about as thick as 2 of my fingers. Gu Mingming gestured as she spoke, trying to let Elvis understand her meaning. Elvis looked at the rabbit meat in his hands, then at Gu Mingming, who was looking forward to it. He passed the rabbit meat to Gu Mingming, saying, eat first, I will find you some wood. Gu Mingming instinctively took a small step back, saying awkwardly, Leader, I don't eat raw meat. Raw meat. Elvis looked at the rabbit in his hands. It was just skin so fresh. Why not eat it? Elvis looked at Gu Mingming suspiciously. You want to eat it with the skin on? Gu Mingming's mouth twitched. Yes, there was no fire here, so there could not be cooked meat. Since it was not cooked, how would Elvis know what raw meat was? Their living environment was different. The generation gap was as wide as the Pacific Ocean. Leader, I need a branch to start a fire before I can eat. Or else, I will die. Gu Mingming tried her best to simplify the contents, not saying anything that Elvis could not understand, or else Elvis would not need to help her find something to start a fire after she explained everything, because she could already starve herself to death. Elvis did not know what Gu Mingming was thinking. He only understood Gu Mingming's words literally, thinking that Gu Mingming's request for firewood and fire was a ritual that the messenger of the beast deity had to go through before eating. If she did not do it, she would die. Will die. This was an extremely shocking term. How could his Gu Mingming die because she had no branches? Alright, wait for me. Elvis casually threw the rabbit meat aside and left like a gust of wind to help Gu Mingming find some wood. Gu Mingming sighed silently as she looked at the bloody rabbit meat on the ground that was beyond recognition. No matter how handsome Boss was, he was still a rough man from ancient times. You only know how to peel off the skin before eating meat. Why don't you know how to clean the ingredients first? Sigh, I'll just have to do it myself. With that thought in mind, Gu Mingming tiptoed to pick up the rabbit meat on the ground. She wanted to clean this piece of meat at the stream beside the tribe, and wait for Elvis to find some dry branches, before trying to start a fire, by drilling the wood to cook the meat. Previously, she wanted to sneak away and got lost, causing her to wander around the tribe for half a day. But now, it was a blessing in disguise. At least Gu Mingming could find the more iconic places in the tribe. To reach the stream, she just had to pass through the huge empty space in the middle of the tribe, and walk a short distance. But why were there so many people crowding around the empty space today? Aside from the topic. Chapter 30. Gu Mingming held onto a piece of unprocessed rabbit meat and squeezed into the crowd with the mentality of joining in the fun. Although Gu Mingming had a petite figure, but in this beast world where the ratio of males and females was very different, males were naturally sensitive to females. In addition to the unique fragrance on Gu Mingming, the surrounding males quickly noticed Gu Mingming and moved to the sides out of habit, opening up a path for Gu Mingming. Thank you. It was Gu Mingming's first time receiving such treatment. She thanked them awkwardly while walking forward. Then, at the other end of the crowd, she saw a familiar figure. Barit. Gu Mingming's eyes widened, her face full of disbelief. Barit and Quentin were kneeling together on a huge rock. The rock was about half the height of a human, and its surface area was about 5 to 6 square meters. The entire rock was exposed in an open space without any cover. Barit and Quentin had been kneeling for God knows how long. Their mouths were so dry that their skin was peeling, but Barit was still kneeling with his back straight, not affecting his tough guy image at all. However, Quentin, who was kneeling beside Barit, was in a much more miserable state. Although his broken arm was no longer bleeding, he was obviously very weak. His dry lips were deathly pale. If he were to continue like this, not to mention returning to his original form, he would probably turn into jerky in less than 3 days. In stark contrast to these two, there was another man standing on the stone platform. He was clearly exposed to the sunlight without any cover, but his skin looked crystal clear, as if the sunlight could not cause any damage to him, and instead coated him with a layer of golden light. It was a far cry from Elvis's vision of the god of war. This man stood gracefully, like a flower on a high mountain, so holy that no one dared to have any thoughts of blasphemy. Holy returned Gu Mingming's gaze and smiled faintly. "You're awake." Eh? This voice was so familiar. Gu Mingming was stunned for a moment before suddenly recalling that it was this voice that gave her an incomparable sense of security last night. Last night he said, don't be afraid, it's all right." Then she was really not afraid anymore. Overjoyed, Gu Mingming climbed up the stone platform and leaned in front of the holy man. "You saved me yesterday, right? It's the blessing of the beast deity that allowed me to find you in time." The man's voice was light, like sweet spring water flowing down, seeping into one's heart. Gu Mingming smiled brightly and arched her eyebrows. "I still have to thank you. If not for you, I would have lost my life." The man did not answer, only nodding with a faint smile. Gu Mingming inched closer to the man and asked softly, "Why is Barit kneeling here? Did he do something wrong?" Holy looked at Gu Mingming, then at Barit, before replying, "As your pursuer, not only did he not fulfill his responsibility to protect you, he even stopped Taylor and the rest from protecting you. That gave Quentin an opportunity to take advantage of, and almost cost you your life. This is a grave mistake, and must be severely punished." Gu Mingming felt extremely apologetic. She was the one who escaped, but Barit was the one being punished. This was too unfair. Moreover, Gu Mingming did not forget what Elvis had said before. The so-called deity's punishment was to be exposed to the sun for 3 days. If he could not endure it, and reverted back to his beast form, he would be skinned. Aside from the topic. Chapter 31. After thinking for a while, Gu Mingming took a small step forward and puffed out her chest, saying, "I was the one who asked Barit to stop the others. This is not Barit's fault. If you want to punish someone, punish me. Please let Barit go." Gu Mingming's words caused an uproar. It had always been the males taking the punishment for females when they made mistakes. This was the first time a female stood out to take the punishment for a male. Holy Man was not disturbed by the outside world. As if he could not hear the crowd's whispers, he smiled at Gu Mingming calmly and gently, saying, "You are a young female, the beloved of the beast deity. No matter what you do, you will not be punished." Happy, Gu Mingming turned around to look at Barit, then back at Holy Man, asking, "Since that's the case, Barit does not need to be punished, right?" Holy Man was still smiling, but he shook his head and said, "It is a fact that he did not protect you well. He must be punished." "But I was the one who did not allow him to follow," Gu Mingming emphasized. "When he agreed to you, he was already prepared to accept this kind of punishment." The man's attitude was very gentle, but he was not willing to give in at all. This made Gu Mingming extremely angry. What kind of robber's logic was this? Clenching her teeth, a thought suddenly flashed across Gu Mingming's mind. So she smiled slyly, tilted her head to look at Holy Man and asked, "Because I am a young female, so it does not matter what I do, right?" Holy Man's interest was piqued by Gu Mingming's sly look. He nodded his head with a hint of anticipation and observation, confirming Gu Mingming's words. Gu Mingming chuckled, walked to Barit's side and pulled his arm, saying, "Get up, you are now kidnapped by me." Barit did not understand what Gu Mingming meant. What kidnapping? He did not understand. Gu Mingming despised the generation gap for 1,000,000 times in her heart, then explained patiently, "It means you have to listen to me now. You have to do whatever I tell you to do." Barit forced a smile. He didn't care that such a smile would cause his dry lips to split open, causing blood to seep out from his lips. He vividly acted out the tenderness of a man of iron, and the doting of a desperate man. All right, I will listen to everything you say. Wait till I'm done with my punishment. You'll be dead after you're done with your punishment. I don't care, you have to listen to me now. Gu Mingming was really infuriated by Barit's stubbornness. With her supporting the young female, to help him take the brunt of the trouble, he actually did not know how to cooperate. What a blockhead. Mingming, be good, don't make trouble. After I'm done with my punishment, I'll listen to whatever you want me to do. But now I really can't get up. Or else. Barit looked at Gu Mingming in a difficult position, unable to finish his sentence. Gu Mingming raised her head, arms akimbo, and asked, or else what? Gu Mingming did not believe that there was anything scarier than dying from exposure to the sun and being skinned alive. Barit lowered his head, his brows knitted into a dead knot that could not be undone no matter what. Pursing his lips into a straight line, it was clear that he had decided not to open his mouth. Mr. Holy took out a leaf the size of an umbrella from somewhere and placed it on top of Gu Mingming's head to block the sun for her. Looking down at Barit and Quentin from above, he answered for Barit. If they escape from the deity's punishment, the beast deity's fury will descend upon their females. Aside from the topic, Gu Mingming. Barit, you're being kidnapped now. Barit, Mingming, can you kidnap me 2 days later? I'm not very convenient now. Chapter 32. Gu Mingming ridiculed in her heart. Damn it, is there anything new? Everything is about females. For this absurd anger of the beast deity, you don't even want your life? Gu Mingming rolled her eyes in her heart. But the two people in front of her, one was punished to kneel here because of her, while the other was her benefactor, who just saved her life last night. Although she did not like their stupidity and superstition, she could not say much. After all, everyone had the right to choose their own beliefs. But Gu Mingming could not bear to watch Barit bask in the sun for 3 days. So, Gu Mingming sat beside Barit, using her elbow to nudge Barit's arm, and asked, Aren't you not mated yet? You don't even have a female. Why are you afraid of the beast deity's anger? Barit's face blushed slightly, his gaze fixed on Gu Mingming. It was a tenderness forged from blood, flesh, and bone. Gu Mingming stretched out her index finger to point at the tip of her nose, asking, Are you afraid that the beast deity will vent his anger on me? Barit nodded his head. The beast deity's anger would spread to the female. This was the most severe punishment the beast deity could give to males. Even though Gu Mingming was not his female, Barit did not dare to take any chances and let Gu Mingming take such a risk. Gu Mingming was speechless, but she felt a tinge of sweetness in her heart. So, her attitude softened by quite a bit, and she continued to ask as if they were chatting. Then, other than kneeling under the sun, are there any other rules for the deity's punishment? Barit shook his head, indicating that he did not know, then looked up at Mr. Holy, as if asking him to answer for him. Mr. Holy deliberated for a moment, then answered, No, as long as they can maintain their human form for these 3 days, it means that the beast deity has forgiven them. Oh, Gu Mingming nodded her head meaningfully, then tilted her head and smiled sweetly at Barit. Mingming, you should go back first. This is the platform of the deity's punishment. It's not good for you to sit here for too long. Barit was a little worried. He was afraid that the beast deity would vent his anger on Gu Mingming if he found out that she was on the platform of the deity's punishment. Gu Mingming did not mind. She lifted her little chin and said, What's not good about it? Don't forget, I'm a young female, the beloved of the beast deity. I won't be punished no matter what I do. But, Barit wanted to say something, but was interrupted by another voice. Gu Mingming. Elvis's face darkened as he held onto 2 wooden sticks, one thick and one thin. She could not blame Elvis for being angry. He had rushed to find a wooden stick for her, afraid that she would starve, and even more afraid that she would be punished to death by the beast deity. But what about her? In the blink of an eye, he had actually come to the platform of the deity's punishment, and was so close to Barit, who was being punished. Leader, I'm here. The moment Gu Mingming heard Elvis calling her, She immediately bounced up and waved at him. Elvis's anger was forcefully dispersed by Gu Mingming's bright and beautiful smile. He took a big step forward and easily climbed up the platform of the deity's punishment. He passed the 2 wooden sticks to Gu Mingming and said, "Can you eat now?" Gu Mingming looked at Elvis. Gu Mingming clutched her stomach and laughed guiltily. Look at how nice she was for Barit. She even forgot that she was still hungry. Elvis looked at Gu Mingming's unrepentant look, feeling both angry and amused, but he could not do anything to her. He could only sigh and say, "Hurry up and eat." Chapter 33. Barit took over the wood in a daze and started sharpening it seriously. Barit was very excited. He knew he was receiving the deity's punishment, but he just could not control the waves in his heart. Elvis was the one who brought Gu Mingming back to Saint Nazir, while Leah was the one who saved Gu Mingming from Quentin. But Gu Mingming handed the tree branch to him in front of the 2 of them. Did this prove that among the 3 of them, Gu Mingming liked him the most? After all, females would only give the males they liked the chance to do things for them. Elvis, who had the same thought as Barit, had an even darker expression. He stuck close to Barit when he could not find him, but once he found Barit, he immediately left him behind. However, the main culprit, Gu Mingming, completely did not know that Elvis and Barit's imagination had gone to the ends of the earth. She was only trying her best to figure out how to place the thicker wooden stick so that it would be stable. "Leader." Gu Mingming looked up at Elvis softly and passed the thicker wooden stick to him. "Can you help me split it from the middle?" Elvis's expression became much better. "See." Gu Mingming passed the thicker one to him. This meant that he was more reliable than Barit. Thus, Elvis took over the wooden stick from Gu Mingming with its under face. He used a little force with his fingers and split the wooden stick from the middle with a cracking sound. Gu Mingming immediately clapped her hands and cheered. "Leader, you're so capable. You're really amazing. This is exactly what I wanted." In reality, Gu Mingming's flattery was too exaggerated, but the males in the beast world all fell for it. The gazes of the males below the platform of the deity's punishment started to wander around, looking for a thicker and bigger wooden stick than the one Elvis split just now, planning to perform for Gu Mingming. The pitiful ones did not know that Gu Mingming did not even have the mood to look at them, because she only wanted to eat now. Gu Mingming laid the wooden stick that Elvis split flat, then waited eagerly for Barit to sharpen the sharpened one. Gu Mingming's gaze seemed to have some kind of magic, causing all the males, including Elvis, to follow her gaze and lock their gazes on Barit at the same time, causing Barit to be extremely nervous. Sharpening the wooden stick under the gaze of the entire tribe was actually so stressful. "What about me? What should I do?" The neglected Mr. Holy took the initiative to lower himself and kneeled on the ground with one knee. He hooked Gu Mingming's chin lightly with one hand and turned her little face towards him. He looked at Gu Mingming with a graceful and elegant smile. His long and narrow eyes looked like they could seduce one's soul. How could he be so charming? Gu Mingming was a little dazed by that pair of eyes. She was so dazed that she could not say a word. She just opened her mouth slightly and stared at Mr. Holy in a daze. Elvis secretly clenched his fists when he saw this scene, because Gu Mingming's current appearance was exactly the same as when she first met him by the lake. She liked Leah. This was the conclusion Elvis came to. By right, he should be happy, but the burning sensation in his chest told him that he was not as magnanimous as he thought he was. He was selfish and wanted to have Gu Mingming for himself and not share her with anyone else. Even if it was Leah, he wasn't willing. The beast pressure that was released unintentionally made all the males under the platform of the deity's punishment feel a strong pressure. The weaker ones almost fainted. Meanwhile, Leah and Barit, who were supporting him, felt it more vividly. Aside from the topic. Chapter 34. Leah maintained the posture of kneeling on one knee and hooking Gu Mingming's chin. He just tilted his head slightly to look at Elvis. His smile was still calm and composed. "Elvis?" Elvis only regained his senses after being called by Leah. He retracted his beast pressure and shifted his gaze to the side, not wanting to see that unbearable scene. Gu Mingming also regained her senses because of this small change. She despised her fangirl behavior in front of everyone, but she could not help it. This man Holy's looks were really too much. If Elvis was like the god of war who made thousands of armies avoid him, then this man Holy was like a 1,000-year fox demon who had an attraction that made people unable to shift their eyes away. From afar, he was like a flower on a high mountain that could not be defiled, but when one looked closer, he had an irresistible attraction, like a whirlpool, firmly attracting everyone's gaze. Gu Mingming smiled awkwardly and passed the wooden stick that Elvis had just broken to man Holy. "Beauty, can I trouble you to help me carve a small hole here? Just this deep will do." Leah nodded and released Gu Mingming's chin. He stretched out his slender and fair fingers, the fingernail of his index finger, growing to a length of 5 centimeters, at a speed visible to the naked eye. Then, he poked the wooden stick lightly, and a small hole of the same depth as Gu Mingming's description was done. Gu Mingming's expression was a little dazed. What the heck, there was such a thing. Please forgive her for not being able to accept the fact that all the handsome guys around her were demons. "Mingming, is this all right?" Barit, who was at the side, finally finished carving the wooden stick. He passed it to Gu Mingming, forcefully interrupting Gu Mingming's infatuated gaze at Leah. Oh, it's all right." Gu Mingming felt that it was too embarrassing for her to lose her composure again, so she took over the wooden stick that Barit had carved and started to focus on drilling the wood to start the fire, refusing to look up at man Holy again. However, even though more than 80% of the people in the tribe were looking at Gu Mingming at the platform of the deity's punishment, no one knew what she was doing. But was that important? Not at all. No matter what the females do, the males just have to support them. Hence, a group of onlookers who did not know what was going on watched with relish as Gu Mingming rubbed that wooden stick with all her might until sweat formed on her forehead. But not even a single smoke was produced, until Gu Mingming no longer had any energy left. Her arms were so sore that she could not even lift them up. She hung by the side weakly, staring at the 2 wooden blocks in a daze with a conflicted face. Elvis then asked, "Is the ceremony over? Can you eat now?" Gu Mingming looked up, her big eyes watering. "Leader, please protect me." Elvis's heart palpitated under Gu Mingming's gaze. Her pitiful look really made one's imagination run wild, and he had an urge to tear her apart and eat her up. Gu Mingming moved closer to Elvis while whining and pushed the 2 pieces of wood towards Elvis, saying, "Leader, help me drill. I don't have any energy left." Although Elvis did not understand why she had to use a piece of wood to drill another piece of wood, since it was Gu Mingming's request, he naturally would not reject her. Hence, Elvis squatted down and imitated Gu Mingming's actions just now, starting to rub the sharp end of the thinner wooden stick into the groove of the thicker wooden stick with force. Not long after, a cloud of green smoke rose. Chapter 35. Elvis looked at the wisp of green smoke, and his hands paused for a moment. Although the smell was faint, he seemed to have smelled the scent of the flame devil. "Hey, don't stop." Gu Mingming finally saw a ray of hope, but when Elvis stopped, the smoke was blown away by the breeze. Elvis looked at Gu Mingming's anxious look, and although he was hesitant, he still continued to rub the smoke. Indeed, after a while, a small flame started to burn. Gu Mingming was overjoyed, and she smiled till her teeth could not be seen. She hurriedly grabbed a bunch of dried leaves and piled them beside the small flame, so that the fire could burn more vigorously. Just when victory was about to come, Gu Mingming felt the weight on her waist lighten, and she was lifted up by Elvis, jumping off the platform of the deity's punishment in a few moves. She stared at the small flame with her brows knitted tightly, and her face was full of wariness. Not only Elvis, even the surrounding males looked as if they were facing a formidable enemy, and the atmosphere instantly became very tense. What's wrong?" Gu Mingming asked blankly. "The flame devil is very dangerous, and will often swallow the whole tribe." Elvis's expression was very solemn, like a general who was ready to enter the battlefield anytime. "Flame devil." Gu Mingming repeated Elvis's words in confusion, as she looked around with her big eyes blinking, searching for the big demon that looked like it would swallow the whole tribe anytime. Elvis used his hand to knock Gu Mingming's little head, and then used his chin to point at the burning leaves on the platform of the deity's punishment. Gu Mingming pointed at the small flame that could be extinguished anytime doubtfully and asked, "The flame devil you are talking about, is it that one?" "Yeah." Elvis nodded his head cautiously. Gu Mingming looked at them for a long time until she realized that even Barit and Quentin, who were kneeling on the platform of the deity's punishment, had a face as if they were ready to die for a just cause. Only then did she confirm that Elvis was not joking. Damn it, the generation gap between the eras was indeed as wide as the Pacific Ocean. Gu Mingming squirmed and wanted to jump down from Elvis's arms. But Elvis firmly believed that the flame devil was an extremely dangerous thing, so he refused to loosen his grip no matter what. The more Gu Mingming squirmed and struggled, the tighter Elvis restrained her. Gu Mingming's struggles were useless, and seeing that the small flame that she had painstakingly lit was about to be extinguished, she could only use both of her hands to hold Elvis's face and force his gaze from the small flame to her. Of the flame, she tried to have trust and said with the most determined expression, "That is not the flame devil, it is fire." Fire? Elvis's brows were still tightly furrowed. He really wanted to believe Gu Mingming's words, but he had witnessed the flame devil devouring a beast city with his own eyes. In just one night, that beast city with 100 years of history turned into ashes. Those orcs who were lucky enough to escape the calamity were all filled with fear, and they would never forget that sky full of red light and cruel scorching heat. Gu Mingming was so hungry. If the fire was extinguished, when would she be able to eat roasted rabbit meat? Flame devil platform of the deity's punishment beast deity. Chapter 36. Sure enough, superstition had to be cured by superstition. Gu Mingming was especially thankful that she had directly or indirectly come into contact with numerous scams that used religion to deceive people. So it was a piece of cake for her to bluff these ancient people who had never seen the market. Elvis and Leah exchanged glances. Elvis had already told Leah about the possibility of Gu Mingming being the messenger of the beast deity. So Gu Mingming's words had undoubtedly confirmed Gu Mingming's identity as the messenger of the beast deity. It was a pity that Gu Mingming herself did not know that her words had unknowingly raised her image to an unreachable level. In the near future, the beast world would be in an uproar. The current Gu Mingming was only thinking about that fresh piece of rabbit meat waiting to be cooked. Since he had confirmed Gu Mingming's identity as the messenger of the beast deity, Elvis naturally would not doubt her words. Although he was still in awe of the flame devil, but since Gu Mingming had said so, he would risk his life to try. So, he placed Gu Mingming on the ground and tried to approach the fire carefully. Gu Mingming felt aggrieved as she watched Elvis, that devil, advancing in a village-like manner. She sighed and simply walked around Elvis, taking big strides towards the direction of the fire. Orcs had excellent hearing. Even if some of them were not as good as Elvis, they were not far off. So most of them heard what Gu Mingming said just now. It was just that they did not know Gu Mingming's identity as the messenger of the beast deity. So they were in a wait-and-see state. After all, when did a female care about the tribe when she was willful? But when Gu Mingming walked towards the fire personally without fear, it brought a huge shock to the watching males. Elvis and Leah, who were left behind by Gu Mingming, felt especially strongly. That petite back view facing the fire, even though it was so weak that it could not even be grasped, it seemed to contain infinite power, making people want to follow her footsteps, trust her and support her. And Barit and Quentin, who were originally kneeling beside the fire, felt as if they were struck by lightning. Even Quentin felt an indescribable reverence towards Gu Mingming, as if she had some kind of secret on her, and going against her was simply courting death. Perhaps, Lee's timely appearance was not an accident, it was really fated. The beast deity especially favored this female. Quentin secretly decided that if he could survive the deity's punishment this time, he would definitely keep a close eye on Nina in the future, and not let Nina provoke this little female. Gu Mingming did not care about the turbulent waves in their hearts. She skipped to the side of the fire happily, and grabbed a handful of dried leaves to pile in to prevent the fire from extinguishing. She then passed the remaining wood to Barit, who was still kneeling at the same spot, and was the closest to her. Come help me break these into smaller pieces. Barit took the wood in a daze and gripped it hard with both hands. The wood broke into pieces. Gu Mingming's eyes sparkled with little stars of worship. She stuck out 2 thumbs and praised him exaggeratedly. You're indeed a tough guy. So handsome. Generous praise for males did not exist in the beast world. So no matter how many times Gu Mingming praised him in an exaggerated and slightly joking manner, it would make the blood of the males boil. So did Barit, Elvis and Leah. Out of topic. Why aren't you leaving a message? Is there no more love? Chapter 37. Elvis walked to Gu Mingming's side and sat cross-legged. Yes, he was afraid of the flame devil. But Gu Mingming was already sitting so close to him. He was the tribe leader, the #1 warrior of Saint Nazir. Yet he was sitting so far away from Gu Mingming, a little female. Moreover, Barit had been kneeling at the same spot without moving at all. How could he let Gu Mingming think that Barit was braver than Elvis? Although Elvis did not really understand what tough guy meant, it would not be wrong to praise him. Gu Mingming's admiring gaze should only belong to him. With that thought, Elvis retracted his iron arm and pulled Gu Mingming into his arms domineeringly. Seeing that Gu Mingming was about to struggle, he raised his eyebrows and said, "Follower, aren't we supposed to stick close to each other? Fine, you are handsome, you are right." Gu Mingming looked at the rabbit meat on the ground sullenly, then looked at Elvis, who was hugging her stubbornly and did not want to let go. She decided to use a roundabout way to save herself. "Leader, you must be hungry too, right? I'll go and process that rabbit meat and roast it for you to have a sumptuous meal. How about that?" Roast. Elvis felt that Gu Mingming was filled with mysteries. She was like a treasure house full of secrets. Her every action was puzzling and fascinating. Gu Mingming facepalmed. Damn, she was stupid. In this world where the fire was called the flame devil, how could she expect these fellows who ate raw meat and drank blood to know how to cook and what was frying, roasting, cooking and deep frying? Gu Mingming, you are a brave and quick-witted child, you can do it. After Gu Mingming cheered herself on in her heart, she put on a flattering smile and squinted her eyes, saying, "I just have to process that piece of meat and make it more delicious." Elvis was not moved. Wasn't rabbit meat just rabbit meat? What delicious or not? "Leader, as your follower, I have the responsibility to let you live a better life." Gu Mingming nodded her head seriously and was deeply touched by herself. She was really a competent follower. Elvis casually picked up the piece of meat and tossed it into the crowd. The eager males displayed their masculine strength, just like a rugby team fighting in the Olympics. After pushing left and right, a muscular male managed to snatch that bloody and dirty rabbit meat. Then, like a world champion holding onto his trophy, he walked to Gu Mingming solemnly, looking at her expectantly. "What should we do? Tell me and let Colin do it." Elvis's gaze never left Gu Mingming's face. Gu Mingming truly felt that the treatment of being surrounded by the stars was not something an ordinary person could enjoy. It was so damn awkward when hundreds of handsome men with different styles, but all of them had strong physiques and flawless looks, treated it as an honor to be ordered around by you. Gu Mingming smiled awkwardly at Colin and said, "Can I trouble you to bring this piece of rabbit meat to the stream and use water to wash the blood on it and the organs inside clean?" Of course. Gu Mingming's politeness made Colin blush. There had never been a female who spoke to him so gently before. Not to mention washing a piece of meat. Even if Gu Mingming asked him to pluck off all the hair on his body, he would not say no. "Thank you." Gu Mingming tilted her head and smiled sweetly. "No, you're welcome." Colin's face turned even redder. He held on to the rabbit with one hand and scratched the back of his head with the other, taking small steps backwards. Thump. Chapter 38. Colin handled the rabbit meat very quickly and came back with a piece of meat that had been washed clean not long after. Gu Mingming received the rabbit meat happily and asked Colin to find a thinner branch to sharpen one end of it. Then, she skewered the rabbit meat on the branch and tilted her head to look at Elvis. She used a fawning and docile tone to discuss. Leader, can I sit a little to the side? I can't display my abilities if you hug me like this. Elvis liked the feeling of Gu Mingming nestling in his arms. It was as if she was a part of his body, and he was only complete when he hugged her in his arms. But he could not bear to disappoint her. So he nodded his head and allowed her to leave his arms. It was just a distance of less than half a meter, but he felt that it was a little far. Gu Mingming was so hungry that she was seeing stars. No matter how many handsome men there were, they were not as good-looking as the rabbit meat in her hands. Roasted rabbit meat, my favorite, la 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 la. Gu Mingming hummed a little tune while turning the rabbit meat in her hands. Unbeknownst to her, she had shocked all the males in Saint Nazaire once again with her contentment. Gu Mingming knew how to sing, the legendary ability that only females from the mermaid tribe knew. Gu Mingming actually knew it. Gu Mingming turned around unintentionally and saw Barit looking at her in shock and astonishment. So, she used her elbow to nudge Barit's arm and asked, "Why are you looking at me like that?" Barit suddenly regained his senses and lowered his head with his brows tightly furrowed. For the first time, the proud warrior of Saint Nazaire, Barit, avoided the gaze of the female he liked. He started to doubt, was he really outstanding enough? Was he really worthy to be Gu Mingming's pursuer? What's wrong? Gu Mingming was even more astonished. Barit had always been a straightforward person, never hiding or being coy. Although his liking was a little sudden and baffling, humans were just that weird. When someone told you that he liked you for 100 times, that person would become a little special to you, even if you did not accept him or did not even give him any response. But if he suddenly stopped appearing, you would still feel a little uncomfortable. This was Gu Mingming's current state. This Barit had always wanted to have his eyes on Gu Mingming. Now that she had taken the initiative to approach him, why was he avoiding her? Barit pursed his lips and looked at the nimble twigs in Gu Mingming's hands. He did not answer his question and asked, "You're not afraid of the flame fire?" Gu Mingming grinned and replied, "As long as it's used properly, fire will not turn into a flame devil. Look, isn't it helping me roast the rabbit meat?" Barit nodded his head ambiguously and did not reveal more of his thoughts. In the instant that the flame was ignited, he was determined to die. It did not matter, even if he was swallowed by the flame demon. He must not get up and escape. He must not let the anger of the beast deity implicate Gu Mingming. But such determination seemed pathetic in front of Gu Mingming's relaxed attitude. He wanted to become an even more outstanding male, a male that could match up to Gu Mingming. But now, he didn't even know if he could survive the divine punishment. Chapter 39. Barit looked into Gu Mingming's eyes, his resolute face filled with determination. "I want to protect you." Thump. Gu Mingming's maiden heart was violently teased by Barit's not gentle words. How could she forget? Mr. Holy had said before, if one avoided the deity's punishment, the beast deity's anger would affect the female of the punished. Even though she and Barit did not know anything other than each other's names, this fellow still insisted on seeing her as his partner, and was willing to risk his life for her. The touching feeling was not because he was not afraid of anything, but because he was clearly afraid. But to protect you, he did not retreat. The corners of Gu Mingming's lips curled upwards unknowingly. Barit was indeed a tough guy. He was so handsome. While they were chatting, the rabbit meat had already been roasted until it was crispy on the outside and tender on the inside, with a golden brown surface. That alluring aroma made Gu Mingming, who was already famished, feel even more hungry. Swallowing her saliva, Gu Mingming decided to tear a rabbit leg for Elvis after an internal struggle. After all, she did not know how long she would have to stay here. She still had to cling onto his thigh. Thus, Gu Mingming swallowed her saliva while tearing off the rabbit's left hind leg to fawn over Elvis. The words "I'm so hungry, I want to eat" were clearly written on her face, but her mouth was saying, "Leader, why don't you try my cooking first?" Elvis did not take the rabbit meat from Gu Mingming's hands, but this did not prevent Gu Mingming's actions from greatly pleasing him. She shared the food with him. In her starving state, she shared the food that she cooked personally with him. Thus, Elvis unilaterally and generously forgave Gu Mingming for giving him the cold shoulder while chatting with Barit. He only smirked arrogantly pushing the rabbit leg in Gu Mingming's hands back to her, saying arrogantly, "Females have the priority to enjoy all the food. This is the rule of the beast world. I am the leader of Saint Nazir. I will not snatch a female's food." Gu Mingming was famished long ago. Even though the rabbit leg did not have any seasoning, just the barbecued smell was enough to make her mouth water. Not to mention a rabbit leg, Gu Mingming felt that even if she was given a cow, she would eat it without batting an eyelid. But considering her plan of cozying up to him, Gu Mingming forcefully stopped the rabbit meat by the side of her mouth and confirmed again, "You really don't want to try it first? Then I'll eat it. After I finish, there might not be any left." "Eat." Elvis's smile was faint, with a hint of indulgence. Even though it was just a faint smile, it was not hard to see the meticulous pampering. Gu Mingming's patience had reached its limit. Even if Elvis came to snatch it from her again, she would not let him have it. He held the rabbit leg with both hands and chewed on it. Judging by modern standards, Gu Mingming's current table manners looked rather pathetic. But in the eyes of Elvis, Barit, Leah and the other males, she was extremely adorable. Chapter 40. The smell in the air just now was already fragrant and tempting enough. At this moment, they firmly believed that the processed food in Gu Mingming's hands must be incomparably delicious. More delicious than anything they could imagine. Just as Gu Mingming ate the second rabbit leg and burped in front of everyone, the male beasts below the platform of the deity's punishment were pushed aside to form a path. Those who were pushed to the sides were initially unhappy, but when they turned around and saw that it was a female from the tribe, they scratched their heads in embarrassment and moved away on their own accord. "Sandy, I'm sorry, Gu Mingming's food is too fragrant, so I didn't smell your scent." The males apologized as they moved to the sides. "Yeah, it's all right." Sandy smiled awkwardly. Although she was a female, and the people in the tribe had always treated her well, compared to Nina, the first beauty, Sandy seemed to have gotten used to being ignored. "I also smelled the fragrance, so I came over to take a look." Ow, the food that Gu Mingming made smells really delicious. Moreover, Gu Mingming is not only beautiful, she's also gentle and kind. If you want to eat, just tell her, she won't reject you. Gu Mingming's tap water number 1 said. Yes, I saw her sharing the food with Elvis just now. She's even willing to share the food with the males, so it's not a problem for the females. Gu Mingming's tap water number 2 added. Sandy smiled shyly. She was just lured over by the magical fragrance. But when she was really in front of Gu Mingming, she was too embarrassed to ask Gu Mingming to share the food with her. After all, she had 6 males herself. If she begged others for food, her males would be laughed at. She did not want others to say that her males could not even feed their own females. Because of her, they had been bullied by Nina and her partners enough. Gu Mingming, who was on the platform, was already full. She was the typical big-eyed but small-bellied person. Just now, she thought she could eat a cow. But now, her stomach clearly told her that her understanding of herself was very incomplete. Gu Mingming, who was preparing to distribute the remaining rabbit meat to others, naturally heard the discussion below the platform of the deity's punishment. She looked towards the direction of the voice and saw Sandy. Sandy had short hair and looked refreshing and sunny. She had a quiet and gentle smile that was slightly bashful but not coy. Her skin was a healthy wheat-colored and slightly stocky. She was on the borderline between strong and fat. Although it did not conform to modern aesthetics, her chubby body looked cute. Although they were both females from Saint Nazir, Sandy and Nina formed a stark contrast. Gu Mingming had a natural liking for such a soft and shy girl. After all, she had been surrounded by a group of males for 2 days. Other than that annoying Nina, Sandy was the first person of the same gender Gu Mingming had met. Who said that like repels? Damn it! How much Gu Mingming wanted to hold hands with Sandy to increase her liking. She wanted to show the world what it meant to regret not having met earlier, and to feel like old friends at first sight. Gu Mingming patted her butt and stood up. She walked to the edge of the platform of the deity's punishment and bent her knees to sit. Her legs hung naturally on the edge of the platform of the deity's punishment. Gu Mingming, who was sitting like this, was about a head taller than Sandy. Against the light, She reached out a slender and fair hand towards Sandy. Her radiant smile was as warm as the sun. Many years later, when Sandy recalled that day, she would still smile gently and imitate Gu Mingming's tone. Hello, I'm Gu Mingming. Aside from the topic. Chapter 41. Sandy was dazzled by Gu Mingming's radiant smile. She looked up at Gu Mingming in a daze, feeling an indescribable sense of excitement. She was so beautiful that Sandy could not think of a suitable adjective even after racking her brains. And such a beautiful female did not look down on her just because she was a half-orc. She even reached out her hand to her. Sandy timidly reached out her hand, but stopped right in front of Gu Mingming's fingertips. How could a half-orc like her touch such a beautiful female? Gu Mingming did not give Sandy any time to feel sorry for herself. She reached out her arm and held Sandy's chubby little hand firmly. Yeah, it felt really good to pinch it. I made roasted rabbit, let's eat together. Gu Mingming looked at Sandy's obviously greedy yet shy look. It was as if she was looking at her younger sister from the neighborhood when she was young, and she felt extremely close to her. Sandy was originally attracted by the smell of the roasted rabbit. Now that Gu Mingming pulled her, there was no reason for her not to eat. But looking at the males standing behind her, Sandy blushed and said softly, I will only taste a little. Gu Mingming was not such a petty person. She held onto Sandy's arm and bumped her lightly with her shoulder. She winked and said, Don't worry and eat, there's more. Although Sandy was a half-orc, she was still a precious female. So, other than the 2 rabbit legs that Gu Mingming ate, the rest of the rabbit was left untouched. It was Sandy's first time on the platform of the deity's punishment. She was a little nervous, but in front of the temptation of delicious food and Gu Mingming's passion, this little bit of nervousness was not a cause for fear. She obediently learned from Gu Mingming and sat cross-legged beside her. Her watery eyes were clear and transparent. That little bit of greedy thoughts was written all over her face. Gu Mingming looked at her charmingly naive look, and her heart softened even more. She nimbly tore the remaining roasted rabbit into several small pieces. She picked the meaty parts and gave them to Sandy first. Then, she fawned over the meaty parts to Elvis. Although Gu Mingming did not give him the food first this time, considering that Sandy was a female, and that Gu Mingming had given him the food first before she ate, Elvis was still very satisfied. Although a rabbit was bigger than a modern rabbit, it was still a rabbit. How much meat could it have? Gu Mingming held the remaining bit of meat in her hand and looked at the 3 males who were staring at her helplessly. Don't look at me with that look of anticipation. Gu Mingming's heart was breaking down. The amount of meat in his hands was definitely not enough for 3 people to share. However, Mr. Holy seemed to have a high status. It wouldn't be nice not to share it with him. Barit had suffered so much for her. Even though he was so afraid of fire, he still knelt on the ground without moving, afraid that the beast deity whom no one had ever seen would vent his anger on her. This friendship was there for all to see. If she did not give it to him, Gu Mingming would curse herself for being a scum. Looking at Colin, who had helped clean up the rabbit meat just now, although they weren't very familiar with each other, at least he had done his part. Was it okay to not give him? There was a lack of resources. Just when Gu Mingming was in a dilemma, a soft voice sounded from behind her. Although it was so soft that it could not be heard, in Gu Mingming's ears, it had solved her urgent problem. Gu Mingming, that can I still eat a little more? Aside from the topic. Actually, there was another person kneeling on the platform of the deity's punishment. That was Quentin. However, Gu Mingming chose to ignore him. Chapter 42. Sure, of course you can. Gu Mingming chuckled and turned around to pass the remaining rabbit meat to Sandy. She smiled and said, You're a female, so you're very precious. If there's food, of course I should let you eat first, right? Right? Although the 3 males who did not get to eat were a little disappointed, it was better to give it to Sandy than to the other males. Hence, they did not say anything and just nodded. Among them, Colin was the one who agreed the most. He looked at Gu Mingming with shock and admiration and said, You're really the kindest and most gentle female I've ever met. Not only do you treat your pursuers so well, You're also so gentle and friendly to other females. Gu Mingming, you're really too special. Gu Mingming was a little embarrassed from the compliment. After all, strictly speaking, this rabbit was just leftovers from her meal. She was already embarrassed that Sandy did not despise it, and even looked touched when she gave it to her. Now that Colin called it out with such a loud and clear voice, Gu Mingming felt even more guilty. It's just a rabbit. It's not as exaggerated as you said. Exactly, a sharp voice sounded, and the temperature of the platform of the deity's punishment instantly dropped. Gu Mingming had goosebumps from the bottom of her feet when she heard this voice. It was not fear, it was disgust. Looking towards the source of the voice, it was indeed Nina walking towards them with a face full of hatred while twisting her fat butt. Even if the males were uncomfortable, they still had to make way for Nina. After all, she was a female. Nina did not care about what others thought. She was fully focused on the platform of the deity's punishment. That bitch. How dare she hit her? She must make her pay the price. Nina's partner transformed into a beast and laid on the ground, allowing Nina to step on his back and climb up the platform of the deity's punishment. Like a queen, Nina was supported by her other two partners on each side with her Doraemon-like hands. Her aura was really intimidating. Sandy was used to being bullied by Nina. Now that she saw her, her instinctive reaction was to hide behind her own males. But her males were all below the platform of the deity's punishment. They wanted to help her, but were blocked by Nina's partners, and could not come over at all. Sandy was anxious and afraid, and her eyes reddened involuntarily. I say, Sandy, even though you are just a lowly half-orc, you are still a female of Saint Nazir. How dare you eat something of unknown origin? Those who don't know would think that your male is too useless. And those who don't know would think that your male is too useless, causing you to go around begging for food, because you can't eat your fill. Nina's sharp and harsh voice came flying towards Gu Mingming, although her original target was only Gu Mingming. Seeing how harmonious Sandy and Gu Mingming were, she was infuriated. Those who were close to Gu Mingming were her enemies. With this thought in mind, Nina's words became even harsher. She crossed her arms in front of her chest and looked at Sandy with disdain. Aya, could it be that your males really can't satisfy you and made you starve? If that's the case, you can tell me. I can share some of my leftover bones and internal organs with you so that you can eat more. You won't have to go around begging for food. TSK so ugly. Why does Saint Nazir have a female like you? I'm really ashamed to be in the same tribe as you. It's too embarrassing. Chapter 43. Seeing how Gu Mingming looked like she was about to rush up and hit someone, Nina instinctively took a small step back. After all, Gu Mingming was the first one to hit her. The wound on her head was still hurting. Although males couldn't hit females, they definitely wouldn't let their females be bullied. Therefore, the two males who were supporting Nina automatically took a step forward and shielded Nina behind them like a pair of door gods. Gu Mingming clenched her teeth in anger, pointing at the noses of the two males and scolded. Females fight, males get lost. Yes, there was an unwritten rule in the beast world that males could not interfere in the fights between females. But in general, females in the beast world rarely had any conflicts. They would usually send their males to fight with the males of the other party to settle their problems. Gu Mingming's action of fighting personally had never been seen before. Gu Mingming saw that the pair of door gods did not budge and had no intention to move aside, which made her even angrier. She rolled up her sleeves and said fiercely, "What's wrong? Are you guys going to attack me too? Yesterday, you asked Quentin to kill me, but he did not succeed. Today, you two are planning to be substitutes and kill me in front of everyone in Saint Nazir, right? Come on. Do you think I'm afraid of you?" Nina's two males looked at Quentin, who was kneeling at the side, and signaled them with his eyes. They raised their hands and wanted to tell Gu Mingming, "If you want to hit someone, hit me, don't hit Nina." But before she could say anything, just as her hand moved, the aggressive Gu Mingming fell to the ground with a thud. This time, Gu Mingming put in a lot of effort. She fell down with a solid thud in her, but almost broke into 8 pieces. Her big, watery eyes shone with tears as she looked up at Elvis pitifully. She looked like a female lead in a Chiang drama, who was wronged but still stubborn. She said with a trembling voice that was on the verge of tears, "Leader, save me." Eh. The pair of door gods looked at each other in astonishment. Did they touch her just now? No, right, didn't they? Then why did she fall down? Could it be that she was too weak to stand up to the wind, and was blown away by the wind they raised with their hands? These people who lived in the ancient times naturally did not know that Gu Mingming's play was called Peng Si Air, when she was about to give birth. Yeah, the Oscars owed Gu Mingming 10086 Oscars. Males in the beast world had extremely good eyesight, and Elvis was so close to them. Moreover, from the moment Nina appeared, he had been on guard, afraid that Gu Mingming would be at a disadvantage. So he could clearly see that Nina and the other two males definitely did not touch Gu Mingming. However, was that important? Gu Mingming had already fallen. Did it matter if they were the ones who pushed her? Like a gust of wind, Elvis flashed in front of Nina's pair of door gods. Gu Mingming did not blink, but she could not see Elvis's movements clearly. By the time she could see clearly, Nina's partners had already been lifted off the ground by Elvis, who was holding their necks. Then with a loud bang, a cloud of dust rose under the platform of the deity's punishment. The pair of door gods were thrown down by Elvis. The males who were watching the commotion below the stage were already very contemptuous of Quentin's behavior. Now that Nina's other two partners actually dared to lay their hands on young females in front of everyone, this was simply inhumane. Damn, orcs were also humans. How shameless could they be? Chapter 44. Gu Mingming climbed up from the ground with a roll, and stood half a step behind Elvis like a vile person intoxicated by success. She raised her head and looked at Nina with an even more arrogant aura than when Nina was facing Sandy just now. "Nina, I'm going to kill you. Ugly monster, you were so arrogant just now. Come, tell me again, who is the one with an unknown background?" Elvis raised his eyebrow and looked at Gu Mingming, who was obviously bullying others with her power. That glance was filled with infinite gentleness. Elvis felt extremely proud to be able to become her pillar of support. Thus Elvis, who had always kept a respectful distance from the matters of females, did not feel that the disputes between females were boring and troublesome for the first time. Instead, he stood at the same spot and played the role of support, watching Gu Mingming's performance with relish. Nina had always been traumatized by Gu Mingming, but she only dared to find trouble with Gu Mingming because of her masculinity. But she never expected Elvis to intervene. The two of them standing side by side was like an insurmountable Himalayas to her. Nina did not expect Elvis to intervene. Nina was a little scared and instinctively wanted to escape, but she felt that she could not do it. Especially when Gu Mingming shouted "ugly monster." It really triggered her sensitive nerves. After all, she was the most beautiful female in the tribe. How could her beauty be slandered? Therefore, Nina mustered up her last bit of courage and puffed out her chest. She raised her head and said, I'm talking to Sandy. What does it have to do with you? Sandy is my friend. What you say about her has got to do with me. Gu Mingming held onto Sandy's arm, and secretly held onto Sandy's trembling hand. She did not mind that Sandy's palms were all sweaty, and only raised her chin to signal Sandy with her eyes. Then she asked, "Right, Sandy?" Yeah, we are friends." Sandy was always timid in front of Nina. Even with Gu Mingming's support, she still did not dare to look Nina in the eye. She just hid behind Gu Mingming like a frightened chick, seeking protection. But Gu Mingming's petite figure could not even cover half of Sandy's rotund figure, so this scene was rather funny. But at this moment, Nina could not be bothered to make fun of Sandy and Gu Mingming's physique. She only felt that she was about to die from anger. She could not afford to offend Gu Mingming. But who asked this bitch to have Elvis and Barit backing her up? But Sandy, this lowly half-orc female, actually dared to go against her so brazenly? This was simply turning the sky upside down. "Sandy, come here." With that, Nina pounced over, wanting to pull Sandy from behind Gu Mingming and teach her a harsh lesson. How could Gu Mingming let her have her way? Just as Nina pounced over, Gu Mingming pulled Sandy to the side and avoided Nina's attack. At the same time, she tripped Nina's leg, and Nina fell flat on her face. It fell right in front of Quentin. Quentin wanted to reach out his hand to help Nina up, but his wrist was held by a fair and slender hand. His voice was calm, but with a hint of seduction. If you reach out your hand to help Nina up now, this matter will not be as simple as a small conflict between females. Do you have the confidence to win against Barit, Elvis, and me? Aside from the topic, author, Gu Mingming, it's not right to bully others. Gu Mingming clasped her fingers and looked at author Ian. Nina is not human. Author Ian. Gu Mingming, why are you scolding others? Gu Mingming shrugged. I told you Nina is not human, author Ian. Gu Mingming, you can't say that Nina is not human just because she has a conflict with you. Gu Mingming, are you Xuanzang? Can't you tell that this is the beast world? Who knows what kind of seductress Nina is? Just you wait. I'll beat her into her original form for you to see, author Ian. A mess in the wind. Gu Mingming, close the door, let Elvis go. Chapter 45. Quentin stopped his outstretched hand abruptly. He could have fought Barit to a draw. And if he had fought with all his might, he might have won. But now that he had lost an arm, it was impossible for him to defeat Barit. Moreover, other than Barit, Elvis and Leah were by Gu Mingming's side. Looking at Quentin slowly putting down his hand, and finally clenching it into a fist, Leah clicked his tongue in regret. I thought you would be very willing to give me a chance to perform. Quentin did not reply. His brows were tightly furrowed as he made eye contact with Nina, who was sprawled in front of him. Nina had heard the entire conversation between Quentin and Leah, but she did not think that Quentin's silence was to help her. Instead, she thought that Quentin was timid and weak, allowing Gu Mingming to bully him because he was afraid of Barit, Elvis, and Leah. Nina did not dare to lose her temper at Leah and Elvis, but she was not so polite to Quentin. She sprawled on the ground, and did not even straighten up, one of her hands slapping the ground with all her might to show her anger. She glared at Quentin with her black chicken-like eyes, pointing at his nose and scolding. You useless fellow, you can't even handle a small matter properly. Now that I'm being bullied, you actually stand by and do nothing. I don't have a useless male like you. I want to break off the partnership with you. I must. Quentin did not reply. His eyes just stared deeply at Nina, who was flipping out. His gaze was deep and reserved, making one feel sorry for him. For Nina, how many things had he done that went against his conscience? Even if he would be abandoned by the beast deity, as long as it could make Nina happy, he would do it. But this was already the second time she said that she wanted to break off the partnership with him. Nina's words caused the scene to sink into a strange silence. Even the males who were beating up Nina's other two partners stopped and looked towards the platform of the deity's punishment with furrowed brows. Quentin was indeed despicable to lay his hands on Gu Mingming, but he was willing to risk the public's anger to do it, all for Nina. But Nina said that she wanted to break off the partnership with him. This was really disappointing. Even the pair of door gods, who were beaten up by the male beasts, looked at Quentin with sympathy in their eyes. However, Nina was not moved at all. She propped her fat body up with her elbows and sat on the ground while panting. She acted like a shrew as she pointed at Quentin and scolded. I was willing to mate with you back then because you could fly. But what happened in the end? His wings were actually crippled by someone. Tell me, can an eagle without wings still be considered an eagle? It's fine if you can't fly, but now you've even lost an arm. A crippled beast like you is even worse than a half-beast. What do I need you for? Today we might as well dissolve our partnership. From now on, you can never say that you're my partner. Gu Mingming also felt angry after hearing Nina's words. Just as she was about to argue with her, Sandy pulled her arm and shook her head at her. Gu Mingming thought that Sandy was worried that she would get into trouble, so she patted the back of Sandy's hand and said, Don't worry, I'm not afraid of her. Sandy used a little force and pulled Gu Mingming, who was about to dash out back. She was in a difficult position, but she still whispered into Gu Mingming's ear, You can't help Quentin, don't go over. Aside from the topic, yeah, I know Nina is not an important person, I'm just using her to expound on the views of marriage in the beast world. Chapter 46. Gu Mingming looked at Sandy in confusion, not understanding what was going on. Sandy pursed her lips and lowered her voice even further. This is a tacit agreement between females. We cannot interfere with the matters between other females and their males. Gu Mingming looked at Sandy and nodded after thinking for a moment. That's right. Even an upright official would find it hard to settle a family matter. As an outsider, it was indeed inconvenient for her to interfere with the matters between a couple. Gu Mingming sighed and suppressed her manic chivalrous heart. She decided to be a down-to-earth onlooker and watch the live version of the breakup arena. If I were Quentin, I would have dumped Nina long ago. Gu Mingming twitched her mouth in disdain and tilted her head slightly to tell Sandy. Gu Mingming's voice was very low, but it was still heard by everyone. Her words were even more unacceptable than Nina, saying that she wanted to break off her partnership with Quentin. This was simply a universally shocking concept. Sandy was also quite shocked. She looked at Gu Mingming with her big, adorable eyes and only spoke after a long time. Males can only mate once in their lives. Once they break off their partnership with their partners, they will receive the punishment of the fury of the beast deity. Even if the stronger ones can survive, they will become stray beasts and never feel happiness or warmth again. They can only live like the Walking Dead. Moreover, they will be chased and killed by all the orcs. That kind of life is very miserable. F***ck. Gu Mingming's eyes widened even more than Sandy's. That was too inhumane. Not allowing a divorce when the relationship between husband and wife was broken? Why did a divorce sound like it was destroying the entire Milky Way galaxy, and they were chased and killed by everyone? What did my divorce have to do with you? Facing Gu Mingming's astonishment, Sandy clearly did not understand. This was common sense. Why did Gu Mingming not seem to know about it? Gu Mingming looked at Sandy's expression and roughly knew that she had overreacted. Perhaps, in this world where the ratio of males to females was so abnormal, such a rule was a form of protection for females? Otherwise, with the willful and suicidal nature of females in the beast world, males would probably have strangled numerous females like Nina to death. Although Nina was despicable, but if the females were all strangled to death, then the beast world would not be able to continue reproducing. Gu Mingming understood this point, and the expression on her face softened a little. She shook her head and said, forget it, forget it. Why should we join in the fight between the husband and wife? Come on, let's go back and eat. Look, your rabbit meat is getting cold. Do you want me to heat it up for you? At the mention of food, Sandy immediately forgot about Gu Mingming's strange behavior just now. She nodded with her eyes shining and said softly, Gu Mingming, the rabbit meat you made is so delicious. It's different from what I've eaten before. There's a type. I don't know how to describe it, but it's really delicious. Gu Mingming chuckled. Eat more if you like it. As Gu Mingming spoke, she placed the remaining rabbit meat in Sandy's hands back on the fire to roast. However, the position of the roasted meat was even closer to Nina and Quentin. Hence, Gu Mingming was like a popcorn seller at the entrance of a cinema. She did not need to buy a ticket, but she did not miss out on anything that happened in the cinema. The aroma of the roasted rabbit wafted through the air, causing Nina to be tongue-tied. She could not even scold Quentin properly. Looking at Sandy taking a bite of the rabbit meat in satisfaction, that blissful look on her face made her bite her tongue accidentally. Damn it! Nina was extremely angry. She was the first beauty of the tribe. Since when did delicious food belong to a lowly half-orc female like Sandy? Aside from the topic, to be honest, I am very conflicted now. Damn it, I want to blacken Quentin and make Nina break off the partnership with him. Then Quentin will turn around and kill Nina for revenge? How about it? Is there anyone who supports me? I feel so aggrieved. Damn it, I did everything for you. Damn it, you didn't even ask me how my broken arm is. Damn it, you only know how to scold people. P.S. Let's guess with a prize. What race is Nina? The reward for guessing correctly is 20 XXB. Hint 1. Birds. Chapter 47. Nina was infuriated. She rushed forward, and before Gu Mengmeng could react, she smashed the roasted rabbit that Gu Mengmeng had just warmed up for Sandy onto the ground. She then looked at Sandy arrogantly and said, "I said not to eat, are you deaf?" Gu Mengmeng already disliked Nina. Although she would not stand up for Quentin like a saint, it did not mean that Gu Mengmeng could accept Nina's way of doing things. Moreover, Nina had been looking for trouble the moment she came out. Gu Mengmeng wanted to beat her up just now, but she suddenly turned around and targeted Quentin in the middle of a quarrel. This caused Gu Mengmeng to be unable to vent her anger, and could only endure it. Now, she came to look for trouble again, and even smashed the food that was meant for Sandy onto the ground. Looking at Sandy's aggrieved look, Gu Mengmeng was so angry that she was about to burst into flames. "Hey, are you crazy? Just because you said not to eat means not to eat. Who are you?" With Gu Mengmeng's push, Nina staggered a step back. Because she was prepared, she did not fall this time. Because of Quentin's silence, Nina, who was already in a bad mood, completely vented her anger on Gu Mengmeng. What was so good about this skinny young female? Barit liked her, Elvis liked her, and now even Leah expressed his support and affection towards her. How hateful. All these outstanding males should have belonged to her, the first beauty of the tribe. So Nina copied Gu Mengmeng's actions and pushed back, not to be outdone. Gu Mengmeng's body was petite and slender. Naturally, Nina, who was bloated and lacked training, could not be compared to her. She just lowered her body slightly and dodged Nina's attack easily. She then swung her fist and hit Nina's fat stomach. Damn it! Gu Mengmeng's fist was completely buried in Nina's overturned stomach. She felt that she could not exert any force on it, as if her fist had landed on cotton. It was so light that it made her feel uncomfortable. But even so, Gu Mengmeng's years of martial arts and Sanda training in the gym were not for nothing. To Nina, who had never been hit before, a heavy blow almost took her life. She sat down on the floor and wailed, "Ah, murder! This young female wants to kill me. Someone save me." Nina thought that her pitiful plea for help would definitely trigger a male's protective instincts, because she clearly saw Elvis's muscles tensing up when Gu Mengmeng did that. He looked like he was going to destroy the world, as if whoever stood opposite Gu Mengmeng deserved to die. So, Nina learned from Gu Mengmeng, and added some of her own acting skills, forcefully portraying what it meant to be a pitiful wailing like a pig being slaughtered. However, her appearance was not completely useless. At the very least, her male felt his heart ache. Unfortunately, Quentin, who was kneeling on the platform of the deity's punishment, didn't dare to move. The two who dared to move below the platform were beaten to the point that they couldn't get up. Gu Mengmeng was already furious, and felt even more annoyed after hearing her wailing and howling. She simply flipped over, and rode on Nina's body. She swung her arms and slapped Nina more than 10 times, scolding as she slapped. "I'll let you howl. I'll make you howl. Howl. Howl again." Gu Mengmeng only stopped after slapping Nina's face till it was swollen. Nina had never seen such a scene before, and she was completely dumbfounded from the slaps. Looking at Gu Mengmeng riding on her, she did not even have the courage to push her. Seeing that Nina was completely obedient, Gu Mengmeng then dusted her hands and stood up. She looked down at Nina and said, "Remember, I'm Gu Mengmeng. Sandy is my friend. If you dare to bully her again, I'll beat you up every time I see you." Aside from the topic, author, cough cough to promote the correct values, hitting people is not right. Babies, remember not to hit people for no reason. Gu Mengmeng, it's not right to hit people, but it's effective. Author, let's talk nicely, don't hit. Gu Mengmeng, let's not quarrel when we can fight. Maintaining silence is also a virtue. We'll hit people quietly and leave quietly. Author, Gu Mengmeng, I don't allow you to hit people. No. Gu Mengmeng shrugged her shoulders. Alright, I won't hit people. I won't hit people. Anyway, Nina is not a human. Chapter 48. I am a female, you can't hit me. Nina protested with a trembling voice as she cried out in fear and indignation. Gu Mengmeng snorted in amusement, and threw a punch towards Nina's face. Nina was so frightened that she took a step back and curled up into a ball. She looked pathetic and funny at the same time. However, Gu Mingming's fist stopped an inch away from the tip of Nina's nose. Gu Mingming stuck out her thumb and pointed it at herself. She smiled confidently and teasingly. I'm going to hit you. Hit me back if you can. You are barbaric. Nina saw that Gu Mingming had no intention to continue hitting her. Her face was swollen, and her words were unclear, as if she had a soy egg in her mouth. Thank you for your compliment. Gu Mingming cupped her fists and smiled in disdain. She turned to the cute Sandy and completely ignored Nina, who was looking for her teeth all over the ground. It was the first time Sandy saw Nina at a disadvantage, and it was so pitiful. Although she felt that Gu Mingming's way of handling things was weird, so what? The main point was to vent her anger. Sandy pursed her lips and smiled secretly. She pulled Gu Mingming's hand and said softly, Don't rush out by yourself next time. What if you get hurt? Gu Mingming broke into a grin, completely different from when she was beating up Nina. She was as warm as a heartless big sister next door, half coaxing. Don't worry, if I can't beat you, I will definitely run away. I am not stupid. I will still rush out if I can't beat her. Sandy was also smiling with her eyes curved. She liked Gu Mingming so much. Friends. So there was such a relationship between females too. Sandy sat back down beside the small fire. Perhaps it was because of Gu Mingming. The flame devil that people feared previously only made her feel warm. The orange-red glow seemed so gentle and holy. Hey, don't eat. Gu Mingming stopped Sandy from picking up the food that Nina threw away. Looking at Sandy's confused gaze, Gu Mingming really wanted to educate her on the basics of food hygiene. But how could she overcome the gap in knowledge? Gu Mingming shook off the 3 black lines on her forehead and said in the most direct way, It's already cold. Don't eat anymore. Sandy pouted and stared at the half-eaten rabbit skewer with watery eyes. Her pitiful look melted Gu Mingming's heart. Gu Mingming, you are so cruel. How could he stop a foodie from eating? Gu Mingming berated herself in her heart. In the end, he couldn't resist Sandy's gluttonous cuteness. He pulled Sandy's little hand and said, I'll go ask my boss if he has anything else to eat. I'll make a lot of delicious food. Don't do it, okay? Upon hearing that there were so many delicious foods, Sandy nodded her head hurriedly. Gu Mingming could even see stars twinkling in Sandy's eyes. Thus he returned the same bright smile. She really liked Sandy more and more. The platform of the deity's punishment was about 5 to 6 square meters in size, so Elvis could hear the entire conversation between Gu Mingming and Sandy. Thus, when he saw Gu Mingming's gaze slowly turning around with a slightly pleading expression, he felt as if his heart had suffered a heavy blow. So a critical hit with a warning was even more lethal. Here, Elvis handed over the portion of roasted rabbit that Gu Mingming had given him just now to Gu Mingming without any hesitation. That was originally what he wanted to keep. So, he resisted the urge of his taste buds, and did not even bear to take a bite. But no matter how delicious the food was, how could it not be compared to Gu Mingming's every frown and smile? Even if it was what she wanted, even if he had to snatch it by force, even if he had to go through water and tread on fire, he would never let her suffer even the slightest bit. Aside from the topic, Gu Mingming. Sandy is so cute, so soft and cute that it's easy to push her down. Chapter 49. Gu Mingming looked at the already cold roasted rabbit that Elvis passed to her and asked pitifully, Leader, don't you like the food I made? Elvis's expression froze, and he shook his head with a frown. How could he not like it? He loved it so much that he wanted to swallow it whole. Only heaven knew how much he cherished it, unwilling to part with it, and that was why he endured this desire, leaving this piece of rabbit meat behind. Then why didn't you eat? Gu Mingming pouted and looked at Elvis pitifully, being stared at by Gu Mingming's big eyes. Elvis could only stretch out his slender fingers and carelessly play with Gu Mingming's hair. Looking at her furry little head, he felt an inexplicable sense of satisfaction. It's for you. I'm afraid you'll be hungry again. Elvis did not even know how gentle and sweet his voice was at that moment. Gu Mingming sighed silently. It was really hard to survive in the beast world. Even a demon-like leader had learned how to kill by touching his head. What if she couldn't control herself? F***ck. What was the difference between this and teasing the husky in the neighborhood? Gu Mingming shook her head silently in her heart, telling herself over and over again, I am a good youth of socialism. My 3 views are upright. Love between humans and beasts can be seen in cartoons, but a real-life version, tisk anyway, she could not act it herself. Elvis did not know what Gu Mingming was thinking about. He only saw her shaking her head, and thought that she did not believe him. He was a little anxious, but did not know what to do. In a moment of desperation, he stuffed the entire roasted rabbit into his mouth, using his actions to prove that he did not despise Gu Mingming's culinary skills. Gu Mingming was puzzled by Elvis's sudden way of eating, as if he wanted to choke himself to death. Was everyone in the beast world like this? Committing suicide at the slightest disagreement? Choking to death was also a very unique choice. While Gu Mingming was in a daze, Elvis had already swallowed the entire roasted rabbit. That smell! It was as if he had opened the door to a new world. It turned out that meat could be eaten like this. The excitement in Elvis's heart was indescribable. He held on to Gu Mingming's petite shoulders tightly and brought her into his arms. He said in the most affectionate tone, so delicious. F***ck me. Gu Mingming almost bit her own tongue. To be able to hear someone say delicious, in a way that was even more touching than, I love you, in her entire life. It could be said that she had learned something new. Boss, if you like it, I'll cook for you often in the future. Gu Mingming suppressed her slightly restless heart, and kept repeating in her heart, Elvis is a husky. Elvis is a husky, yes, Elvis was a husky. Thinking about it this way, hugging and touching her was nothing much, no. Elvis rested his chin lightly on Gu Mingming's furry little head, and fiddled with her hair in a seemingly nonchalant manner. In actual fact, he was extremely excited as he said, I will cook for you in the future. After all, I'm the boss, and I have to protect you. Gu Mingming's eyes sparkled, and she gave Elvis 2 thumbs up. She said with utmost sincerity, You're really one of a kind in this world, unprecedented in history, the best leader in all of eternity. Elvis could not understand much of this string of praises, but Gu Mingming's worshipping expression had thoroughly pleased Elvis. The corners of his lips curled upwards, forming a proud arc. Elvis looked at the fire pile that Barit was carefully taking care of, and revealed a wild and determined smile. How could he lose to Gu Mingming's other pursuers? In any aspect, it was absolutely impossible. Aside from the topic, Elvis, so in your heart, I'm just a substitute. Gu Mingming shook her head with her eyes wide open. Elvis, you don't have to lie to me, I already know. Gu Mingming's black face full of question marks? Elvis, say, who do you think the husky is? How did you know him? Which stage are you 2 at now? Gu Mingming. Kiss, hug. Raise high. Leader, where are you going? Chapter 50. Gu Mingming looked at the lump of charred and bloodied meat that looked like roasted meat. She felt from the bottom of her heart that her praise for Elvis just now was too exaggerated. She deeply understood that looks did not represent everything. At least, it did not represent culinary skills. Turning a perfectly fresh piece of meat into a biochemical weapon was also a kind of talent. Gu Mingming definitely could not eat it. But if she said she did not want to eat it, she could not resist Elvis's pair of expectant eyes. Gu Mingming struggled for a while, and decided to put up with her stomach to please Elvis. After all, leader was the truth and looks were justice. Gu Mingming bit down on Elvis's masterpiece with the determination to die for justice. There was a charcoal taste in her mouth, and when she chewed, there was a loud crunching sound. Gu Mingming's sense of taste had already activated its self-protection mechanism, and she could not taste anything. Yes, her tongue was numb. The only thing she was worried about now was whether her little white teeth could withstand the test of this roasted meat that was comparable to a small rock. Her stomach rolled, followed by a twitching pain. Drops of sweat appeared on Gu Mingming's forehead, making the smile she was trying her best to maintain look especially heart-wrenching. Males were naturally sensitive, and Elvis already knew that he might have messed up the moment Gu Mingming saw that piece of roasted meat. However, he was still holding on to the hope that it might not look good, and that the taste was not bad. After all, he used a lot of courage and love to roast it. But Gu Mingming only took one bite, and her forehead was already full of sweat. Elvis could not help but recall what Gu Mingming said when she asked him to find a piece of wood. Or else, I will die. It seemed like the beast deity world had a unique way of cooking food. If the messenger of the beast deity ate the wrong food, she would really die. Thinking of this, Elvis's heart tightened. He went forward and smacked the roasted meat in Gu Mingming's hand, saying with a black face, "Don't eat it." Leader. Gu Mingming was a little worried. Actually, Elvis was really nice to her, but she was still afraid of him, especially when he showed clear signs of anger. She was especially afraid of him. Perhaps this was because she had seen Elvis's original form. Humans had a natural fear towards wild beasts, especially ferocious ones like wolves, tigers, and leopards. Try mine. A tree branch with barbecued meat was extended in front of Gu Mingming. Gu Mingming looked up along the branch and saw Mr. Holy radiating a godlike radiance, smiling and coming to save her. Beauty, thank you. Gu Mingming still did not know Mr. Holy's name, but he could always jump out at crucial moments to give her a sense of security. It was the same last night when Quentin wanted to kill her, and it was the same now when she was afraid because of Elvis's anger. Gu Mingming did not know why, but the words he said last night rang in her ears. Don't be afraid, I'm here. Mr. Holy responded with a faint smile and said, If beauty is a title, can you add my name after the title? Gu Mingming nodded, then shook her head. She lowered her head in guilt and said, You saved my life, but I don't know your name. I'm sorry. Leah. Mr. Holy's voice was as gentle as the choir in the church. It naturally made people feel blessed. Promise me that you will remember my name and never forget it. All right? Beauty. Leah. Gu Mingming smiled brightly, her eyes curved into crescent moons, clearly reflecting Lee's shadow. Chapter 51. Elvis felt very uncomfortable, but he could not explain the reason. He only knew that he really disliked the way Gu Mingming was looking at Leah. It made him feel very uneasy, anxious, and frustrated. But he could not stop Leah from getting close to Gu Mingming. He and the entire Saint Nazaire must support all the factors that could make Gu Mingming choose to stay in Saint Nazaire, even though he really hoped that this factor could be him, and only him. But if it was not him, or not only him, then he would rather it be Leah than anyone else. As an opponent, Leah was undoubtedly the most troublesome person, but as a partner, Leah was the most reassuring. Elvis knew that if both Leah and himself could become Gu Mingming's partners, it would be the most advantageous situation for both Gu Mingming and Saint Nazaire. So, Elvis endured the bulging veins and clenched his fists tightly. He watched as the pink atmosphere between Gu Mingming and Leah continued to glow, but did not rush up to break it and bring Gu Mingming away. If Gu Mingming's identity as the messenger of the beast deity was exposed, she would be safer with Leah and him protecting her together. Elvis kept repeating this in his heart to suppress his urge to rush up and attack Leah. But the time that Elvis felt was long and torturous was actually less than a minute, because no matter how much Gu Mingming was obsessed with beauty, she could not resist her physiological reaction. From a crafty and supernatural point of view, Elvis's roasted meat, which was not a perfect combination of charred and fresh, had won Lee's beauty. Gu Mingming felt her stomach cramping up. No matter how good Lee's roasted meat was, she could not open her mouth to take a bite. Gu Mingming held onto her stomach and squatted down, curling up in pain. This situation made everyone extremely worried. Elvis especially blamed himself. He should not have let Gu Mingming eat something that he had not tasted before. He was too careless. Leah was Saint Nazaire's witch doctor. Taking care of the females in Saint Nazaire was his top priority. So when Gu Mingming showed such pain, his reaction was the fastest. That piece of roasted meat, which he had put so much effort into, was casually thrown aside. Leah took a step forward and carried Gu Mingming in his arms. using the posture of carrying a baby to let her relax as much as possible. His slender and fair fingers caressed Gu Mingming's forehead gently. Leah said with concern, "Don't be afraid, tell me where you are feeling unwell. I can cure you." To be honest, Gu Mingming felt a little embarrassed being hugged like this. However, the joy in his heart was indescribable. Which girl doesn't want to be cherished? A handsome, gentle, capable and attentive male god, like Leah, would hug you gently, as if he was holding the most precious treasure in the world. His pair of eyes that could turn the world upside down would only focus on you, as if he had poured all his tenderness into you. Chapter 52. A sweet fragrance slowly spread out, and the entire Saint Nazir was stirred. Yes, another young female in the Saint Nazir tribe had come of age. Even though it was only her second day in the tribe, she was still a female in Saint Nazir. The coming of age of every female was a joyous event for the tribe. Firstly, it was because the birth rate of females was extremely low, and coupled with the fact that they were born weak, it was not easy for them to successfully live to adulthood. Secondly, since the young females were born, all the unmated males in the tribe had the obligation to take care of and protect them. Therefore, on the day that the young female became an adult, the tribe would hold a grand bonfire party, allowing the matured young female to choose a male she liked from among the single males to become her partner. It was very important to be the first partner of the female in the future. No matter how many partners the female had in the future, the first partner's status in the family would be second only to the female. And because the female basically did not have to do anything and did not care about anything, the first partner in the family basically held the power and gave the orders. Moreover, although the adult Gu Mingming had only come to the tribe for 2 days, she had brought too many surprises to Saint Nazir. She brought the fire of hope bestowed by the beast deity and delicious food. She was kind, friendly, righteous and extremely beautiful. Such a female had come of age today. The arrival of happiness was too sudden, and the males in Saint Nazir would definitely fall into madness and excitement. On the other hand, Elvis's conflict, Lee's faint smile and Barit's unbearable agony. Yes, Barit was one of the top suitors among Gu Mingming's pursuers, and Gu Mingming clearly treated him differently. If he could confess his love to her at the bonfire party today, even if he was not her first partner, he could definitely become one of her partners. But now, he had to kneel on the platform of the deity's punishment, and there were still 2 days left. In these 2 days, he could only watch Gu Mingming choose someone else. However, Gu Mingming, who had caused all the commotion, had no idea what her great-aunt had brought to the males in Saint Nazir. She only blushed and looked at Leah, who was smiling warmly at her, thinking about how to tell him that even if he was the living Hua Tua, he could not cure her menstrual pain. Gu Mingming gently squirmed and tried to stand up from Lee's arms. Although she felt that Lee's embrace was very warm and comfortable, but it was too shameful for someone who was on her period and didn't even bring a sanitary pad to stay in someone else's embrace. Leah tightened his arms and stopped Gu Mingming's actions. He looked around the platform of the deity punishment and looked at the males, who were getting even more excited because of Gu Mingming's actions. His rose-red lips moved closer to Gu Mingming's ears and said in a deep voice that sounded like a cell, "Don't leave me." It was not an exagger. Gu Mingming had goosebumps. Was she being seduced, or was she being seduced? He had watched countless Korean dramas, but in the end, he was flirted with by an ancient beast? Gu Mingming pressed against her wildly beating heart and swallowed a mouthful of saliva. She was having a final battle with her worldview. Since the beautiful Leah had already said so much, should she pounce on him or pounce on him? Leah looked back at Gu Mingming, his rosy lips pressing down slowly, stopping less than 2 millimeters away from the tip of Gu Mingming's nose. Opening his thin lips slightly, a moist and warm breath sprayed onto the tip of Gu Mingming's nose. That ambiguous feeling assaulted her face, catching her off guard. Chapter 53. Howl howled Gu Mingming, could even hear the wolf howling in her heart. Control, she must control herself. Gu Mingming suppressed her heart that was beating erratically, pursed her lips and said, "I'm fine, let go of me." Leah hooked Gu Mingming's chin with his slender fingers, as if he was deliberating over something, but did not say anything. He just led her to turn her face to the side, shifting her gaze away from his face, and glanced at the beasts with green eyes under the platform of the deity's punishment. Then, he hooked her chin back and asked with a faint smile, "Sandy might not be able to protect you." Gu Mingming felt thousands of beasts galloping through her heart. What was going on? Did the werewolves transform collectively on the night of the full moon? The bunch of good-looking guys just now. Why were they all like beasts staring at a food cart in a zoo? And unfortunately, Gu Mingming herself was equivalent to a food cart. Gu Mingming was shocked and instinctively wrapped her arms around Li's neck, trying her best to burrow deeper into Li's arms. She couldn't care less about her period anymore. Her life was more important. Gu Mingming's actions made the fragrant blood smell spread even thicker. Leah, who was hugging her, was not spared from being affected. His heart was beating once, twice, strongly and forcefully. This long-lost feeling made Leah frown. But his expression was almost indiscernible. Other than Elvis, no one else noticed. Not going down? Leah shifted his attention to Gu Mingming, making himself look normal, so that no one would notice his abnormality. Gu Mingming shook her head like a rattle drum. Go down, what kind of joke was this? Damn it. She had a premonition that as long as she left Li's side, this bunch of green-eyed servants would tear her apart and devour her, leaving not even her bones behind. Leah smiled in satisfaction at Gu Mingming's reaction. He stood up slowly, cleanly and without any unnecessary movements. He supported Gu Mingming's but with one hand, while his other hand hung by his side nonchalantly. In order not to fall, Gu Mingming could only hug onto Li's neck with all her might, not daring to relax at all. Their faces were pressed against each other, and Li's heart was stirred up by Gu Mingming's delicate skin and fragrant scent. Even though he tried his best to control his emotions, his tone still revealed too much flirtatiousness. Are you going back to Elvis or me? Gu Mingming's heart skipped a beat. The more dangerous the outside world was, the more seductive this kind of ambiguity was. Gu Mingming buried her entire face in the crook of Li's neck, so she did not see that her small action made Leah hold his breath, and that he was at a loss for what to do. Send me back to Boss. Boss will protect me. I can protect you too. This sentence almost slipped out of his mouth, but Leah strangled it to his throat. After a few twists and turns, he finally managed to extract it into the word good. Leah walked past Elvis, and the two of them exchanged glances. The tacit understanding they had developed from years of going through life and death situations allowed them to communicate without words. Tonight, the bonfire party to celebrate Gu Mingming's coming of age would definitely be very exciting. But the final victors could only be the two of them. Elvis and Leah walked side by side, protecting Gu Mingming, who was nestled in Li's arms like an ostrich. They passed through the crowd of eager males, exuding the pressure of the strong, and none of them dared to act rashly. Meanwhile, on the platform of the deity's punishment, Barit, who was staring at their backs, punched the ground hard. A crack appeared on the stone, and his fist was covered in blood. Aside from the topic, the good news was that Gu Mingming's aunt announced that she was coming of age. The bad news was that there would be no meat in the strict crackdown. The author shrugged her shoulders innocently. Chapter 54. Gu Mingming was still dumbfounded when she returned to Elvis's winter snow. The males followed Elvis's cave and stopped at the edge of Elvis's territory. They did not dare to go any closer due to Elvis's strong beast pressure. But they did not leave and kept pacing back and forth. Gu Mingming was so scared that she almost cried. She could defeat Nina, but it did not mean that she could defeat a group of abnormally strong males. Leader, you won't let them eat me up, right? Elvis's face darkened, and he was in an extremely bad mood. His little follower was being coveted by all the single males in the tribe. No one would be in a good mood. Moreover, she had promised to be his follower and not leave his side. But she had been glued to Li's body the whole time, and did not even look at him. You still know that I am your leader? Elvis's voice carried a tinge of anger. Leader. Gu Mingming whimpered pitifully with a sobbing tone. Don't worry. It's not their turn yet. Gu Mingming's eyebrows twitched. Leader still decided to eat her up? Just as Gu Mingming was at a loss, Leah had already taken out a piece of soft and white beast skin from the depths of Elvis's cave with ease. He folded it in half and placed some herbs that Gu Mingming could not name in the middle. The reason why she could confirm that it was herbs was mainly because the smell of Chinese medicine was too strong. It was strangely similar to the smell coming from the Moxibustion hall below Gu Mingming's house. Then, Leah sewed the beast skin to a suitable size, and it was smooth and comfortable. Without saying anything, he lifted Gu Mingming's skirt. Gu Mingming was so shocked that her body trembled. She grabbed onto the hem of her skirt and stared at Leah in disbelief. She wanted to scold him as a rascal, but looking at his face that was glowing with holy light and his calm expression, Gu Mingming could not bring herself to scold him. You will feel more comfortable if you put this on. Li's tone was calm, which made Gu Mingming, who was on guard, feel like she was gauging a gentleman with her own mean measure. But no matter how much of a gentleman he was, he could not lift someone's skirt. Gu Mingming coughed awkwardly and snatched the barbaric version of an ante from Li's hands. She nodded and stepped back, saying, I'll do it myself, I'll do it myself. Li's slender fingers threaded through Gu Mingming's silky hair and supported the back of her head firmly, while his other hand wrapped around Gu Mingming's waist. His actions were intimate and natural, as if they were supposed to be hugging each other like this. He naturally held Gu Mingming in his arms. Leaning against Gu Mingming's ear, Li's voice was filled with temptation. You have to try and get used to relying on us, or else we will be hurt. Gu Mingming was dumbfounded, completely unable to understand what Leah meant. Dependent. But he didn't have to rely on her to the point of changing sanitary pads for her, right? Shame. Just thinking about it makes me feel so ashamed. Chapter 55. Belong to me? Gu Mingming's eyes were glazed over, losing some of their clarity. They looked like they were in a state of chaos and confusion. The corners of her lips curled up slightly, but that smile was not her usual unbridled and pretentious smile, but a little infatuated. Yes, belong to you. Li's voice was still calm. The corners of his lips curled up slightly, carrying the confidence of controlling everything. He was like a deity, looking down on all living things. Elvis secretly released his beast pressure, interrupting the intimate interaction between Leah and Gu Mingming. Leah glanced sideways, looking at Elvis with a puzzled gaze. Elvis took over the already half-conscious Gu Mingming from Li's arms, his brows furrowed tightly, looking at Leah with blame and disapproval. She is the messenger of the beast deity, so she must stay in Saint Nazaire. Leah did not seem to understand Elvis's implied meaning, but seemed to be using this attitude to remind Elvis. And this is the simplest and most effective method. Elvis's brows furrowed even more, because he also knew that Leah was right. As the tribe leader, he should consider for Saint Nazaire, and using the fox's seductive fragrance to keep the messenger of the beast deity was also one of the plans he had approved. It was just that at that time, he did not know that the messenger of the beast deity, whom he had never met, would be the one who always surprised him, made him break his rules, and made him call her leader uncontrollably. When she wakes up, she will blame us. Elvis looked at the defenseless Gu Mingming, who had fallen into a deep sleep in his arms, thinking about how her clear eyes would be filled with hatred and anger when she opened them again. He felt a sharp pain in his heart. To her, it's just two more outstanding males following her. She has nothing to lose. Moreover, if she gets angry because of the fox's seductive fragrance, the only one she cannot forgive is me, not us. Leah seemed to be prepared for anything from the start, regardless of whether the outcome was good or bad. If that's the case, you can kill me in front of her to vent her anger. As long as the messenger of the beast deity can stay in Saint Nazaire and make Saint Nazaire stronger, it's worth sacrificing my life. Things have not reached that stage yet. Elvis interrupted Li's words. After going through life and death for so many years, He had long treated Leah as his family. Their blood and flesh were intertwined, and they treated each other with sincerity. Although the thought of sharing Gu Mingming with Leah made him feel as though there was a fishbone stuck in his throat, Elvis treasured Leah like his own hands and feet. However, Leah smiled indifferently and glanced out of the cave thoughtfully. If she could mature a few years later, or even a few months later, I would not have to use the fox's seductive fragrance to mate with her. But now, no matter how different you and I are in her heart, the difference between us and other males is not big. If you want her to really stay, her first child has to be between you and me. Only then could Saint Nazir keep her. Otherwise, she can leave with her males anytime. And we can only choose to abandon Saint Nazir, or become stray beasts. Elvis clenched his fists instinctively. There were some lines that could not be crossed. But if he had to sacrifice Gu Mingming for his ideals, his principles and his bottom line, he could not bring himself to do so. Perhaps Leah was right. Even if they took advantage of the time when Gu Mingming was bewitched by the fox's seductive fragrance to mate with her, Gu Mingming would not suffer any loss. Even if she did not like them because of the fox's seductive fragrance, she could easily find other partners and leave him and Leah alone. She could even break off their partnership in the blink of an eye. Chapter 56. She will not belong to anyone else. No one can take her away. Elvis turned around and carried Gu Mingming to the grass in the cave, so that she could sleep more peacefully. Leah did not stop Elvis from leaving. He just looked at him quietly. When he walked out again after settling Gu Mingming down, Leah had already collected all his emotions. His eyes were so deep that they seemed to be able to see through everything. His voice was so calm that there was not a single ripple in it as he stated in a light tone, "You have already fallen in love with her." Elvis did not say a word, he just frowned and looked back at Leah. After a long while, he nodded his head slightly. Yes, he liked Gu Mingming, inexplicably, so much so that he could not extricate himself. He and Leah had planned for Saint Nazir for so many years, yet he had miscalculated his own restless heart. So this was how it felt to fall in love. Gu Mingming used her big, lively eyes to teach Elvis how to make his heart beat. So, he would never let go of this mischievous female no matter what. Luckily, Gu Mingming was coincidentally the messenger of the beast deity. So Elvis did not have to choose between the tribe and Gu Mingming. Leah did not seem to be surprised at all. Yes, that female was the messenger of the beast deity. She had countless attractive points on her. She was beautiful and intelligent, kind and gentle. Most importantly, she represented the beast deity, and was the supreme authority in the beast world. It was an honor to be able to stand by her side. Which male could not be tempted? What about Barit? Do I need to warn him? No need. Elvis had his pride as the leader of the tribe, or rather, he had his pride as a male. Leah nodded his head. He had absolute confidence in Elvis's abilities, or else he would not have bet everything he had to support him, to help him reach the peak, to build Saint Nazir into the strongest tribe in the beast world, to recreate or even surpass the glory of Sauter in the past. I will not tell her about what happened today, but not again. But don't do it again. Elvis warned Leah seriously. His tolerance towards Gu Mingming was zero. Leah raised his head, and his gaze drifted to somewhere outside the cave. Without a clear focus, his gaze seemed a little hollow, and even his voice sounded ethereal, as though it was near yet far away. It would be best if she could stay in Saint Nazir according to her own wishes. But what if she didn't think so? If one day, she falls in love with another male? She's mine. Elvis interrupted Leah. His meaning was clear. No matter how many partners Gu Mingming had in the future, his position as the first partner would not change. I'm glad you're so confident. Leah smiled and shrugged. After taking a deep breath, he turned around and walked towards the entrance of the cave, leaving Elvis with a proud and aloof back view, and a faint sentence. I'm going to prepare for the night campfire party, and send those males away at the same time. Elvis did not stop Leah from leaving, and only sighed softly. Yes, he also hoped that he could continue to be this confident. Not long after Leah left, Gu Mingming slowly woke up. She did not feel much strangeness, and only felt as if she was drunk. She remembered being in Lee's arms, and how she wanted to pounce on Leah and Elvis with lust in her heart. But she did not know that she was like that, because Lee's Fox's seductive fragrance had magnified the little greed in her heart. She only thought that she was too daring for lust, and wanted to pounce on Leah. But how could she dare to think about Leader? Was she not afraid that Leader would swallow her whole if he was unhappy? Aside from the topic, today, she clenched her teeth and bought a new computer. You're tuning in to the Lee May's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.